Hi, everybody, and welcome to our next live. This is Being in the Middle. My name is Blagica Bottigliero, and I'm having chats with friends, colleagues, and people within the world of GenX who have done some pretty amazing things. And I'm lucky enough to have been around a while to meet a wide variety of people, and people I think would help you in your journey, whether you're a Gen Xer or not. Today, I am uber excited. I know I joke and I call Tony my long lost cousin, but I kind of feel that way, especially when you're married to an Italian guy and you're ethnic. Please meet Tony and Julie Bombacino. Hello, Bombacinos.
Hello.
What's up, B? Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being in. So, where physically are y'all located right now?
We are in Chesterton, Indiana, the Silicon Valley of Indiana. And we're in our dining room right now. Yeah, so it's very exciting. One of our home offices.
There was an article I read today about Central Time Zone. I should send it to you. It was this LOL article about Central Time Zone. I have to send it along at some point.
I love Central. I grew up on Eastern Time Zone in Northwest Ohio, and I love Central Time Zone.
It's the best.
You know what? I miss it because the evening news, I'd see my TV shows earlier. The kids could see things earlier. So before we go into all of my questions, because I'll have questions, I want to sit back and let Tony and Julie introduce themselves to you. Briefly, how do I know them? Well, a lot of you'll see connections of these talks. I've met some pretty wicked rad people through the digital marketing tech industry in Chicago. And that's how I met Tony and Julie. So I'll kick it to you guys to kind of give us your background and what you did for a living before you started the thing we're going to talk about.
Oh my goodness, Blagica. God, the history starts with you too. I've always been a marketing nerd, as for the audience, B knows, and many people watching know. Kind of been at that intersection of marketing and tech. I was actually a computer science major way back in the day in college at the beginning in the 90s. And when I graduated, or right before, I realized, hey, it wasn't about the tech and the data for me. It was about what I could do with it. So I changed majors to marketing, got into digital. And I spent a lot of my career at some bigger companies, Arthur Andersen, United Airlines at the beginning, kind of understanding process, understanding organizational behavior. And then I realized, I love the big companies. I love what we can do with big budgets, but I want to move faster. I like creating things, of innovating, building teams, and started working for some smaller companies. Some people may have heard of, some they may not have heard of. Restaurant.com, Resolution Media, which was shout out to our other Chicago buddies, Matt Spiegel and Aaron and Lance and the whole crew.
It's such a small, tight family.
It's unbelievable. And now I'm like, God, we're in our late 40s and not our early 20s anymore. But learned a lot along the way, help kind of grow companies, raise some money, expand, and then pushed into this thing called Real Food Blends that we'll talk about with my wife here when our son was unexpectedly had to go on a feeding tube. So that thrust us really into the world of entrepreneurism. Separate from business, I'm from the south side of Chicago, southwest side, as my true Southsiders remind me. Grew up in Burbank, Illinois, Revis High School. Played college hoops at St. Xavier for a little while.
Oh, I forgot you're at Xavier.
Yeah, come on, go Cougars.
I forgot.
And I love to cook, as you know, too. So I love to, when I'm not talking about, marketing and tech and data, I love to cook and eat.
So I, similar to Tony, I was in marketing very early on. Actually, I went to the Ohio State University, and I double majored in journalism and business marketing. And when I graduated, my offers were, go work on a small newspaper in Iowa for $17,000 a year. Or what I did was I moved to San Diego, and this was in the late 90s. And so I've always been on kind of the client side of marketing, primarily digital marketing. Ever since then. So met Tony when I was back in Chicago, working at United Airlines. I was on the credit card side, one of the few sides of United that was making money at the time. This was back in the early 2000s.
Wow.
And so that's where, and at the time I was also getting my MBA in marketing. And so my career kind of went more towards that digital marketing finance side of things for the next, 8 years or so at that point. And then once we had our first child, I stayed home for a little bit and thought, then we had our second child and was doing a little bit of consulting, always kind of envisioned that I would go back to some sort of work, primarily because I'm not a really good on the ground playing with toddlers type of mom.
Mhm.
I'm really good at the organization, things like that, but not the playing on the floor. He's better at that. But then AJ, was born and had all of these medical issues, and so me going back to a full-time role, it was just not even remotely feasible at that point. Like, getting care for him has kind of been our biggest challenge for 13 years now, and so that led us then into this world of real food blends.
And I remember when AJ was born, and I remember just some of the stories you were sharing and what it was like and what a magical kid he is, but also the magical, I mean, obviously for those who are watching this now or later, because many of you end up watching later, the bond that I've gotten to see with two siblings, with Luca and AJ, their children growing up, is just unbelievable. And then all of a sudden, I remember talking to you, Tony, about food, and that Julie was in the kitchen, and I thought, what do you mean in the kitchen? Because when we had our kids, Michael, my husband, and I won't use the word that you're not supposed to use, but my husband would stay in the kitchen on Sundays with his white tank top. I won't use the term that.
It's okay, B. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, there's a term that Italian people might use with what white tank top is, but he'd be there with his gold chain, and he'd be watching Sunday football and blending pineapple and onion and whatever in cubes, and that's what Lily ate. So when you mentioned Julie in the kitchen, I went, what do you mean? And then it was way, way beyond. So tell us that story about AJ, whatever you'd like to share, and when you got to that point of discovery as a parent of, I'll just do this myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not that crazy to say, oh, we blended up food for our kid. But then when we start saying, oh, we blended up food for our kid to put it through his feeding tube, that's when it was like, wait, what? So he was placed on a feeding tube when he was a little over 6 months old because he has epilepsy. And so he was having a hard time, or there was a risk of aspiration. So getting the food safely into his stomach was a risk, during seizures. And come to find out, that's the reason that most people who have a feeding tube have a feeding tube. It's not because their stomach doesn't work or the digestive system doesn't work. It's more because they can't get it safely into the stomach. So there's a whole litany of diseases and conditions. So everything from ALS to traumatic brain injuries, cerebral palsy, that can cause somebody to need a feeding tube. So when he got his feeding tube, he was placed onto, a diet of 100% formula. He was only 6.5 months old, so that's not really earth shattering, but I had been nursing him up until that point, and he hadn't had these issues that came about, with the feeding tube. So he was vomiting every day, multiple times a day, chronically constipated, really unhappy. We had no clue what
having seizures.
Yeah, still having seizures. Like, just a lot was going on. And so, fast forward through 5-6 months of this, I'm, being an internet warrior and just trying to find other parents going through similar things, and what did you do, and what can I do, and what should I be asking the doctors? I took medical advice from Facebook groups, I guess, which I know you're not supposed to do, but it really wasn't, in my mind, it became not medical advice, it was feeding my child. And started blending up food in the kitchen to put through his feeding tube, because I thought, what could get worse, and we vividly would tell the story for a long time. We vividly remember pushing in like 5 ml, so like not even a teaspoon of apple puree into his button. And we stood there like, oh God, what's going to happen? Like, we just put like a little bit of apples in our kid's stomach, and we like literally thought something was going to happen. Like, nothing happened. He digested it. It was, nothing happened. But that's how the process of feeding our son had gotten.
But I have to pause. I have to pause there for a second. Just that visual, Julie, of what you gave me. It is really hard for a parent to comprehend if we didn't do it or didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
So you just said, and to recap, there was a moment in time where you took 5 mils of just apple puree. Yep. And I'm saying 5 mils because, side note, my son's Nico's got a cashew allergy, and I made a little mistake this week with his lunch and put something in there. He had to take 10 milligrams of Benadryl.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about 5 mils is even less than that. It's nothing, but I would freak out to put something in a belly of a kid. I mean, my goodness, to have. So you did that, and he was good.
He was fine. Like, nothing happened. Like, it was such a little, like, it's a teaspoon, right? It's such a little amount. And but within, I would say 48 hours, I had him completely off of all the formula. And he was eating what I was blending up in the kitchen for him. So, everything that, as healthy as possible, everything from oats and, whole milk and fruits and vegetables, avocado. I mean, eventually got to the point where I'm like, I'm blending up really good, sardines. I'm blending up, salmon, just like the best food I could possibly get into him, which, because I didn't have to worry about what it tasted like. I think, every kind of person in the health industry would think, great, I can give my kids sardines and all this, and they're not going to complain. It's like, well, yeah, they're going to complain because they're not going to eat it, but he didn't complain about it. And so very quickly, he was off formula completely. And I mean, he really was a changed kid. Obviously there's some trial and error with like how quickly we could feed him and how much, but we could kind of read his signs, but the color came back to his face. Amazing. He started pooping on his own. He still obviously didn't cure him of anything, but if you feel miserable and you can't poop or you're throwing up every day, like how are you going to do your therapies? How are you going to just like be happy in general? I mean, that's just kind of a basic human building block to the rest of your life is being able to feel good about, the food in your body. So, probably about 6 months of that, maybe or so, just blending up the food. We were super happy. Okay, we found this. We kind of figured out this piece of his puzzle. That's when we started kind of toying with this. Why didn't anybody tell us about this? Why?
That's where I'm at. This is where I'm at.
Yes.
This just seems so logical to me. Like, what?
It's logical.
Okay.
If you've never been in the medical system, why would you not just blend up food? And, not surprisingly, 50 years ago, so before commercial formulas were invented, that's what nurses did in hospitals. They just blended up whatever food was in the cafeteria and put it through a feeding tube. And there's there's a couple points to that though. So it was before formula was invented, because it was, invented. And then also it's nurses in hospitals, because people were not living long enough with feeding tubes to be at home. So this wasn't really considered a big issue. Now, medical advances the last, 15, 20 years are keeping, people alive with feeding tubes for years and decades. Because again, it's dependent on the condition, not just the feeding tube. And so, AJ's 13. Had we not done this, he would have never had a fruit or a vegetable in his entire 13 years on doctor's orders, by the way. Doctors would have been okay with that for 13 years, never having a fruit or vegetable.
Okay, so based on,
yeah.
Trying to be devil's advocate towards the doctor. What was the rationale for that direction to you?
If you have a feeding tube, you have to have formula.
Right. I think so. There's an important part of the context that we kind of skipped over. When AJ was 6 months old, he had a 45-minute seizure out of the clear blue, and then was put onto a feeding tube because he failed the swallow study soon after that. And that's what led us down a path of months of try this formula, try that formula, try this formula. So it was low soy, no soy, high protein, this, feed them slow, feed them fast. There was months. We didn't just kind of think to ourselves, hey, let's blend food and give them some applesauce. It was, hey, this is how you do it. This is how you get them all of his nutrients. And it's this term called nutritionally complete. When imagine, right, one of your children is literally throwing up 10 times a day, having seizures, screaming, nonverbal, right, because he's still little. And you're just looking at each other like, what the hell is going on? Yeah, so that was the desperation.
And the solution now, even to this day, he's throwing up. He can't keep all his calories in. Well, just slow it down.
Right. Or feed him overnight.
Can you imagine you go to your doctor, you're like, I'm eating this one thing every single day, and every time I eat it, I throw up. Well, just eat it slower.
Yeah, it was brutal. We had to put ice packs around the formula overnight.
It was really shocking. Yes.
I'm sorry that I'm stuttering because you guys, you both know I'm rarely at a loss for words, but I kind of am right now. So, okay. Tony provided additional content. You're feeding AJ, you're checking this out, you're doing it naturally, you're figuring out what works, he's getting his health back. It's been 6 months. And you're like, why haven't we been told this?
Well,
and then you decide.
I was angry for a while. Like, we had met with a lot of dietitians, and I was mad. Why didn't they tell me this was an option? This is something, because also psychologically for me as his mother, giving him, he's missing out on this whole mealtime thing and like feeding my child the first bites and taking the videos and all of that stuff. We're missing out on that. But then psychologically, me knowing like, you could blend up food and he can eat what you guys are eating. There's an element of normalcy to that as well. So I was angry for a while. And then, I started doing some more research, on Tony saying, go look into why isn't anybody doing this? Why did nobody tell us about this? And so I did start looking into it and mostly, just talking to other people on the internet and, follow the money. Like there's a lot there that commercial formulas have just been the easy way to go for 50 years. And there were 2 companies that were kind of happily coexisting and fighting over, contracts and dollars. And I think what was getting lost was just the common sense of it. We're talking very flippantly about this and like laughing about it, but it was really, really difficult for us. There was a lot of anger, a lot of emotions, and my
Fear.
gosh, the answer was in our kitchen the whole time. And so once I started doing some research at that point, I teasingly say, put my MBA hat back on for a little bit to figure out, how many people are out there, because we had never known anybody else at the feeding tube at that point. How many people are out there? How many meals are they eating a day? How big of a business is formula? And then we started looking at the math of it too, and the expected growth rates, because again, medical advances are just every year, more and more people are staying alive on feeding tubes and getting feeding tube placed. And, I throughout the years of Real Food Blends, I would tell people like, my gosh, if I didn't worry about what things tasted like, I'd be so freaking healthy.
100%. Oh my gosh. For me, I can't stand the taste of cottage cheese.
It's having a resurgence.
That's awesome.
It's everywhere. So now though, Michael's always getting, give me some, because I'll mix it in my eggs. I'll hide the flavor because I got to get that protein. But I hate the taste of cottage cheese. So to your point, you just, God willing, I don't need that type of feeding plan in the future. But I'm with you. If things didn't have to go into my tongue to taste it all day, we would all be fine. And maybe Ozempic wouldn't be a thing. I'm not going to start going down that path.
An issue. So,
but just saying.
This is back 2012 where we started doing the research on, okay, what's the market size look like? And then from there, okay, what does the path to actually getting a product made look like? What would the hurdles look like? So it came into a very rudimentary business plan. We used some of our connections to go have some discussions with people, because it would take, this isn't something I could make in my kitchen and sell the way it needed to be. So you can't just take this down to a farmer's market and try to find somebody on a feeding tube that wants to buy it. Right. And so, the whole process of finding a contract manufacturer, making it shelf stable, getting the recipes commercialized, all of that took some money. And so that took about 2 years from the time that, we started feeding AJ this way to the time we actually got a product in market. And even that, if you look back at our original business plan, it's kind of funny, like, oh, we thought that, huh? But in a good way, like we had in the business plan that, maybe by year like 2 or 3, insurance coverage might become a factor and like help out. Well, that happened kind of by kismet within months. And that changed the trajectory of the business from
wow.
Almost, yeah.
We're leaving out important context again. This little trip to Disney World.
Oh, yeah.
So how it all really started was, Luca. We have a daughter who's 15 now, but at the time she was only...
Wait, before you tell the story, I think I have to tell you something about Disney World. I think it's because of you.
Uh-oh.
No. Back in the day, and this may have been the trip, you posted photos of Disney World. And me and the fam just went to Disney World last year. And when you have memories of people, things in your life, like little file cabinet images.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, Tony, I have a vision of you. And I told Michael about this. You had posted a photo, like a selfie. You're like, it's hot and we're waiting in a bunch of lines. Was that the trip?
I think so. I think that's the one. But now imagine we're fresh off of, we weren't following the dietitians or doctor's orders. We're rebels, right? We're feeding AJ a different way. And that's cool at home. But now we're going to take a road trip to Disney World with our few-year-old daughter and a son that's completely tube fed. What's the next question? I wonder if there's anything at the store that's healthy, prepackaged that we can just take. Because otherwise, blender, go shopping, blend, doesn't sound like a vacation. And there wasn't. And so that was the first And probably by day 3, it was one of those 3 o'clock in the mornings. Don't know exactly what time it was, but it was tears and stress of what the hell are we doing here? There's got to be a better way moment, which said, all right, let's go fricking do this. We have the skills and background and the ability to do it. About 2.5 years later and lots of money later, he landed on Real Food Blends.
Yeah, I always tease though. It's we have the skills to do it, but it would have been a lot better if one of us had a food science background or operational background. We had a lot of marketing background in this house, but we figured the rest out. Luckily, Tony took on the HR and accounting stuff that I couldn't, and operations that I'm oh no, I don't have the bandwidth for that.
Well, I think that's an important key too, and why I started these chats, because, obviously you started this, you said 20. Would you say 2012 proper is when you officially started? Okay. Yeah. So that's 12 years ago. So you were in your 30s. Obviously, we're all in our 40s now. But it's hard to go back and say, would you do it again? but it took you 2.5 years to figure out the thing. You mentioned lack of food science experience and so on, but you did it, and you did the
Yeah.
grind, and you had the patience to do it as a couple, because running a business with your spouse is not fun. What not even tools, but tips would you give fellow couples or other Gen Xers who see a problem in general? Because what do they say? Invention comes out of necessity, and that 3 a.m. in the morning moment in Florida gave you that. And it took you 2.5 years, would you still have pursued this had you known it would have taken you 2.5 years to get from 3 a.m. in Florida, let's do the thing, to let's get the cash
Well,
and
I
let's
think we would have
go?
went faster. Like, so we were in a good situation to a certain extent. Obviously I couldn't go back to work full time. I was taking care of AJ and Luke at the time, and it was too difficult. So I had some spare time, between piecemealing some nannies and nap time. And Tony was still working full time, supporting the family. We needed support, we needed health insurance, all of those things. So we were trying to, work on it, again, nap times and when we had a nanny and when we could get together. And so, I was doing that heavy lifting while he was supporting our family to just try to get it off the ground. So had we known what we knew now, we would have been like, all right, let's put our own money behind it. Let's just get this out the door, because we know it's going to be a success. I was the one a lot more nervous. He'd come home from work and I'd be like, look what I found. Do you think? I don't know. And he was the one really encouraging me at that point. Like, let's go. Let's go. Like, meet with these people. Like this is a no-brainer. Let's do it. So there were a lot of nights those early years, like me especially, I'd wake up in the middle of the night in a whole panic about, oh my gosh, like, what about this? And what about that? And what, just scary, scary, scary thoughts, about our family and about, just the products and everything. Now looking back, my gosh, of course it was worth it. I feel like we have a lot to be proud of, it's perspective for us with AJ as well. Obviously he still has a lot of challenges. He's still 13. He's not walking or talking. He's 100%, full needs and dependent on us. And his care is not getting any easier as he gets bigger. And so I'm glad we did it while he was younger. I'm glad we did it while we were younger. I don't know if we'd have the ability to do that now. It is scarier when you're looking at college costs and you're looking at, retirement and things like this. When we were a little bit younger, we had a little bit more of a safety net. I feel like that we could, we had plenty of time to take a risk, so to speak. But yeah, working with our spouse, that's been a challenge. Tony can speak on this too. It's definitely a huge challenge, but it's not all, roses and butterflies, but there's nobody else that I trust more. And we have aligned interests when it came to the business. Like, he wasn't out to get me or take over the company. And like, you don't have any of those bad feelings. Like, we have aligned interests. We own this company together. Our success as a couple and as a business is our family's success. So there's nobody else I would trust to make decisions than somebody who's 100%, interests are aligned, which, we didn't always remember that in the day to day. And it was tough. It was really tough, but we made it.
Yeah, I think I'm just kind of thinking, going back as Julie's talking, you asked a couple questions there that are pretty broad questions. I think first and foremost, like when you look back at our skill set, we have complementary skill sets. Julie keeps the trains running on time, very much on top of stuff. You've known me for a long time. I'm more strategic, creative, thinking about how we can do X, Y, and Z, not necessarily how we're going to get them done. It's funny, now that I've got older, that's changed a bit.
You're definitely, you all are definitely yin and yang in that way. 100%.
100%, right? But
100%.
Also, growing up, I grew up super poor. So from a risk-taking perspective, I was already, thankfully, more successful financially in other ways than I ever thought I would be in my life 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And so I said, I felt so, I believed in it so much that I said, if we don't do this, we're going to regret it the rest of our lives. And if we screw up or we fail, we can go get jobs. All right? I believe fully that with our backgrounds and our experiences, we can go do that. We had great networks, we had pedigrees. And I think the key is that first couple of years when I quit corporate America, we kind of mapped out, all right, we had product to bring to market early 2014. And then we were luckily profitable pretty quickly. So it's like, all right, let's go all in here. And it took off pretty quickly. But Julie was working on the business solo for a little while ahead of that while I was working in corporate America, right? We'd meet at night and talk about it. So there's this intersection point of like, okay, you went from doing everything with some consultants to how are we going to split this up, right? Because as the business scaled and we had employees. So I think what I would say to other spouses working together, find your roles. You know what I mean? Like, not that you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to come together and wear lots of hats, but hey, you own sales and ops in this, and you own marketing, HR, and legal, right? There has to be some delineation, and do your best to stay out of each other's way and be more of a support than you're in each other's way, right? And I think when we did that, and as we hired teams, it was far from perfect. There was lots of, little bickering here and there, but there was also lots of, holy crap, look what we're accomplishing together with our team. But the role delineation really helped a lot.
Funny, Michael and I did that with the business, but aside from that, which he's running most of now, we have roles in our marriage.
Yep.
So we have titles in our marriage,
That's
even
awesome.
before the business started. So I've always been the chief financial officer.
Mhm.
Michael has always been the executive chef. I'm a darn good cook, but Michael, having worked in the restaurant business forever, he's just more inventive. So I'm a sous chef. He is the main chef. I might make more traditional kid-friendly meals or whatnot, but he is that person. I am the chief medical officer. He is the chief groundskeeper. And it worked over the years of, and then we have shared the role. We share the role of chief education officer.
Yeah.
So we do that. And then now that we have a 14-year-old, side note, Julie having a teenage girl right now.
Girl.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I want to see if we can get to that too. I mean, managing and being a Gen Xer with a teen. We share the chief disciplinary officer role in that way with who's good cop and bad cop. So I think that role split is spot on. So you have the business, it's profitable, you're hiring people, age is healthy from a nutritional standpoint, you're changing lives. I saw your interviews, I saw the amazing press you were getting, just an insane. If you know this couple, just what they've been through and what they made, and it was such a great, like, I felt like a bunch of us were virtually nodding at you because no, seriously, you kind of went against the grain, and one could say you went against the man, but you kind of did because you figured it out. So what brought you all to the amazing decision, when a large company that you can obviously disclose decided to look at the company and look at the technology and what you built, and you decided to sell it? So what was that like, in that decision to do that, but also do it with a company that fit your values as a couple and as a business?
Well, that's funny. So, you get successful enough and companies come knocking. So there had been some competitive companies knocking over the years. And we had a lot of discussions about that. And are they just fishing for intel? Is this really something that we want to go down this path right now? We had ultimately, I think when we started the company, had the goal in mind, or I shouldn't say that. The goal was not, we want to run a 200-person team throughout all these countries.
With a special needs son and a daughter.
Special needs son and a daughter. Like, that was not our goal. And both of us really, truly enjoyed the early years of it. I think probably more so than the more lucrative later years, because the later years were a lot less, telling our story and scraping by, and doing all of the things. And it was a lot more HR, accounting, finance, operations overseeing, which is not the most interesting for two marketers. So, again, people had been, some of these companies have been sniffing around, and we had gotten to the point together where, like, hey, why don't we go talk to like an outside company, consultancy, or,
investment
bank, and say, what do you guys think? Like, is the time right? Is the market right? What are we looking at? Ballpark wise. And we knew the process was going to take a while, and we weren't like, we wanted to get to that process before we kind of had to get to that process, before we either like were completely burnt out, or there was so much more competition, or, we were getting lots and lots of stuff coming at us. And we just wanted to make sure that we did right by our baby, our third child. And so, once we had those initial conversations with investment bankers, and that was really Tony leading up that whole process, it did feel right. It felt right. Okay, like, it's time to do this. And then COVID hits.
Yeah.
So,
oh man.
Yeah. So we actually did the whole like M&A process all through Zoom, all during COVID.
My goodness.
Yeah, which is funny because we ultimately ended up selling to a foreign company their M&A was headquartered in France, and I'm like, we could have had some amazing trips to France to to get all this hashed out, and instead we were doing it via Zoom. But yeah, you want to add on more to that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day it was prescriptive. Julie and I sat down and literally said, "Hey, we've grown to thankfully millions and millions of dollars in sales." It was kind of crazy. It got to a point where we weren't sure we would ever get to profitable, 20 plus employees, selling all over the country. And then it was, what do we want our lives to look like? Meaning we could go, and we skipped over a couple parts. We had raised like 600,000 in angel investment. We had done some of that stuff to accelerate. We had spent half our life savings before that, kind of getting to that point. So some of those things kind of lead you to these places, right? We were taking salaries, but not big salaries. In the last couple of years, we started paying ourselves better. But then all of a sudden, to Julie's point, we're becoming operators. We're traveling all the time. And we start to realize wait, AJ's needs are getting more, not less. Luca's needs are getting more, not less. What's the sense of having this business that helping lots of people if we can't truly scale it, or if we're gone all the time from our own children? So we kind of said, well, what are our options? We could go raise a bunch of money, have a board, travel more, have more people to manage, or I think we might be at a stage where we can potentially find a partner, sell it, and then even help more people find the right partner, and be in a situation where we can be around our family more. So that's where, through some friends and partners, we found a small middle market type investment banker. When people hear investment banker, they think big business and big companies, but there's also partners that work with smaller businesses. And we hit it off with one from Ohio, one of the executive members had a kid that was actually on Real Food Blends already. You and I were both like, what? And we had met lots of people in the space. We made a list of 250, narrowed it down. And even during COVID, when we first had it's public information that we sold our business to Danone, the holding company of Dan and Yogurt, by way of their sister company, Nutricia. When we met the Nutricia exec team, I mean, the CEO, the whole team, they were awesome. They literally, from the first conversation, it was just like we're talking right now. They were aligned. Hey, we want to keep the brand. We want to help more people. We believe in a more natural approach to this. And, the M&A part, with the folks in France was, and more negotiation and not always fun, but it was always for the right reasons. And
we do not want to give you this much money.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, put a mask on.
Excuse me,
But it was hard because you're running a business and having a family, but it was also pretty awesome to realize, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
We felt good about it because we knew it was right for our family and our marriage. And now look at what Danone is doing. They're scaling it, and it's been pretty cool to watch.
You know that game show that's back on TV? We used to watch it. Well, I used to watch it. I'm sure you guys were some of my latchkey kids too. We watched it in the 80s where you hit the button and it says no whammies, no whammies.
Press your luck, girl. Back on.
Okay. Why am I mentioning Press Your Luck? Because we watch the reruns. My kids love Press Your Luck, more so Nico. Why? Because he's learning through that show when to take your money and run, or when to look at the opportunity that makes sense.
There you go.
So when it goes down to the showdown, I'm like, Nico, do you think they should keep going? He's like, no, they have this much and this trip and da 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 da. So I love what you all did, because you said what is important to our family, what makes the most sense, and I applaud it. And I guess I could bleep it out later, but that's badass. I mean, to sell to that French company is tremendous. And this is why I love the interwebs. This is why I say I can figure out a solution in this box. You used this box to negotiate an M&A deal for this business that you made for your son. I'm getting literal chills, and I think it's an amazing story. And no, y'all didn't know in Disney World it would have resulted in X, but I also want to ask you a hard question, and I don't need to know the amount, but I'd love to know the source, because a lot of people are going to watch this, and they may be 32 or 42 or 62, and they want to start a business. And Tony, you said that you had used a portion of your life savings to start this. I don't need to know the amount, but did you all have to go to a combination of retirement and, liquid savings? What was that like for you when you made the decision to, put it on the table in Vegas, if you will, but it was your stuff?
I'll walk you through it. Julie had her MBA in marketing, had a super senior executive career. I had a pretty senior executive career. We went from making a lot to a little to none really quick. And again, we're very lucky and fortunate that we were good savers. And so we knew we were going to start dipping into that. But all of a sudden, when the credit card bills come in and the mortgage comes in, the car payments come in, and for the first time, you're seeing that number go down, 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 down. Yeah, we pulled from everywhere. And we also opened new credit cards and did stuff like that.
Well, let's be. So we did not pull out of our.
Yeah, we didn't pull out our 401k. I never had a big 401k. I always worked for startups. I still don't have a big 401k.
So that would have made me incredibly nervous. And again, to my point earlier, Tony was keeping us afloat for quite some time. While I was so really the biggest kind of risk we took monetarily was that I was out of the workforce for 3+ years. We were taking no salary whatsoever. And then when he came on, we were taking even less, but at least we had gotten to a certain point. And then plus we're paying for childcare, and we lived in a much smaller home at that point in time because we were planning on moving. And then we ended up staying in this townhouse. So we did a lot of things that maybe some people wouldn't be willing to do. And we were kind of set up in that. A lot of things happened that looking back, like, that was good. Like we had moved into our townhouse that we already had out here. It was supposed to be temporary. We ended up staying there for 3.5 years, which was fine. And then the fact that we had moved out to Indiana really was a big service to us. Saved us a heck of a lot of money because we were no longer paying Illinois taxes over the years, plus on the sale of the company, because we very easily could have incorporated in Illinois just because we'd been there. And that would have been incredibly expensive for us, longer term. So we moved to a, cheaper cost of living area. We lived in a much smaller home. He kept working a job when, it would have been great if we would have just like thrown his hands up in the beginning and said, all right, we're both doing this. But that was really scary with 2 little kids. And so, I don't know that I'd recommend anybody go out there and pull out of their retirement funds, and pay all those penalties, but to each their own.
I think Julie and I look at the work. That's why we complement each other, because we look at things differently. We look at risk differently. I'm risk averse with the stock market. I'm not risk averse with like private companies or with real food blends. It's a really weird dichotomy. And I think too, we were at a sweet spot. Looking back on it, I think we're at a sweet spot of our lives and our career, meaning we had made some money, we had some career, but we didn't have grown kids and we weren't 60. But we had let's be honest, we had a safety net, right? We did not say, screw it. We have 50 grand in the bank. We're spending all of it and we're taking out loans and we're filing bankruptcy. That was not our path. Our path was watching everything we worked hard for the previous 12 to 15 years dwindle away and not know if any of these meals were going to sell. And some people thought we were crazy, thought I was crazy. We both could have had lucrative jobs, but it took off so quickly in 2014. We tripled or quadrupled revenue 2015 over 2014. Started getting covered by medical insurance, started getting big B2B orders. And it was just, some luck's involved in all this, some luck and some timing. Like we're smart, hardworking people, but so are a lot of people. And it was an intersection of hard work, passion, luck, and timing.
I love that, because you also said something that a lot of folks, especially Gen X, don't want to hear or may not want to face. And I applaud it. And that's taking, whether you're starting a business or not, because there are people who want to start businesses now, but there are also folks, as you know, from regardless of what media outlet you watch or read, the job market right now is funky town. It is really funky town with folks, especially Gen Xers. I think everyone knows that I am actually a very avid fan of AI for certain things and many things that I use. It is replacing folks. I mean, I kid you not. I just used AI the other day and I uploaded a wicked detailed spreadsheet of analysis.
Wow.
In seconds, that sucker zipped out charts and MBA-esque level analyses, Jules. And that was the type of work I did, in previous jobs as part of my function. But you had said that you lived in a smaller house. You changed things up. Yes, you were younger. Yes, you were in your 30s. And I think that's the realism that you're giving to this talk, I think is important for folks to hear. But for current Gen Xers today who might need to change careers, or if they want to start a business, it is scary. And I do think our generation in totality is more risk averse. What are your thoughts on that? Whether it's, what are your thoughts? And I know it's a broad question, but to break it down, whether someone's starting a career or whether somebody might need to change careers, change things in general, whether it's become, I don't know, an EV manufacturer or an EV mechanic or any other careers. What are your thoughts on changing it up in your 40s, whether it's a business you want to start or doing a whole other career?
Well, I'm a big fan. I mean, on the starting your business side, I'm a big fan of getting a proof of concept before you completely jump into the pool. So quitting like, I have an idea, so I'm going to quit my job tomorrow and all of my safety net. When the reality is, I think there's very few people out there that are working a true even 8-hour day anymore, especially if they're working at home. And,
Right.
there are so many tools that have made, work a lot easier, I would say. I just shouldn't say easier, less time consuming,
more efficient.
So I think that everybody, like, if you really have a good idea and you've got it, like, getting a proof of concept, working the side gig for a while before you take that leap. And so getting some of that initial risk out of the way, in the other, 16 hours a day, it's like, put your phone down for an hour and concentrate on that for an hour and see what you can get accomplished, I think is incredibly valuable. Because I think if you're not so worried about where your next meal is coming from or how you're going to pay the mortgage, then you can really put that energy towards your business. Or
not binge watch a show during the weekend.
Yeah.
That's what I say, folks. But Julie, you're spot on. I want you to keep going, but you just said something. Put your phone down for an hour. Some folks might LOL that.
Yeah.
But that's real. We all have 24 hours in a day. You have to choose how to use your time.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it can be tough when you're, managing a family, household, sports, whatever. I think you even saying just 1 hour to start is a big deal for people to take that in.
Yeah. And I think, switching careers, so you want to speak to that. Like, I don't know that I have a ton of advice about completely changing.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I think of phases of life. It's interesting. We talk a lot about ageism. We're getting older. I found that as a consultant and an advisor and a board member, I get a lot more respect and looked at your age's wisdom and I need you than I did when I was looking for full-time jobs. It's this weird freaking thing where I'm talking to other friends, whether they're going for lead sales jobs or head of marketing jobs. And it is a crazy ass market out there, even if you've had a great pedigree, right? And then here I am. I don't quote unquote need a full-time job right now. And I have these great consulting opportunities and I'm working with cool clients. And so is Julie. And so I think there's two things that come to mind. One, it's find a way to, even if you have to donate some of your time to become a subject matter expert. We did this with Chicago Associates, Interactive Marketing Associates and SEMA. Write a blog. You are a walking example of what people should do to get over the hurdle of finding a new job or figuring out what's next. Just start. Create some content, do some research, take somebody out to coffee, figure out what those, little next steps are. If you can't see the 15th step, you can maybe see the first couple. I was that guy about AI 6 or 9 months ago. Like, oh, such a pain, another thing. And my good friend Sam, who's a few years younger than me, about 14 years younger than me, really pushed on it. And I got involved in an AI tech startup that he's working with. And then all of a sudden, I started using ChatGPT and other AI tools. And I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. And now I'm pretty versed in it. I feel really comfortable with it. That was only like a 3-month process. I put my phone down. I said, I'm downloading ChatGPT. I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to read one article today. Now I'm going to become an expert today. So I think what Julie said is actually spot on. Just start, right? And then what I tell my friends that come to me like, hey man, I need help looking for a job. I said, go out beyond the 20 people and that you always talk to. And you spent 20 plus years creating this network. Look for random connections. Study LinkedIn. Like most people anyway want to help other people. They're pretty decent, right? And if it's just an email or conversation. So I think that goes a long way. It's like we all focus on like the big scary, how do I do this? And really what it starts with is small steps is what I would say.
What is that? Analysis paralysis?
Oh, yeah.
When you might sit, it's that same thing when you're with, I'm sure you guys do this. Yeah, I'm sure you're on the couch sometime when the kids are chilling and you got the remote and you're flipping through Netflix and you spend 15 minutes figuring out what to watch on Netflix. Michael and I just did this the other day. I'm like, dude, I'm going to go to sleep now. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm just pick something. Yeah. So going back to the analysis paralysis, I think people will say, oh, I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to do that. Whereas I, like you guys, I'm so bullish on people who have gosh, 20, 25 years experience, whether you're into accountant research, teaching, you have all that experience. I mean, the big buzzword right now is fractional, but to be that fractional anything, companies aren't hiring folks full time. So I think that advice is really spot on. And I know it's easier said than done for people to just do it and put themselves out there. So thanks for that. So hopefully, folks watching, when it comes to a business or a new career, learn something, even just an hour, pivot, instead of saying AI is the devil, whatever it may be. As soon as I hear AI is the devil, I'll see another press conference of something else that Google or Chat GPT released. And I'm just like,
right.
I was talking to my phone yesterday like it was the movie Her. I was literally having a conversation with my phone with the new Chat GPT announcements, just thinking this is the coolest thing ever.
Yep.
So let's switch gears a bit. We have some more time. Talked about the business. We talked about how that went. Talked about, careers and pivots and change. Let's talk a bit about how it is managing life with, you have two kids, both in terms of different needs that they have. I know you mentioned AJ getting, more support with his health and whatnot on a daily basis. How are you preparing for them getting older when it comes to their interests, when it comes to what they like to do? I don't know about you all, but I know that there's similar upbringing in terms of Midwest vibe. I have to hold myself back, meaning my parents worked so hard and so much that I figured out college myself. I got scholarships myself. I did all the things myself.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like do some research to my kids. Like, by the way, like my daughter likes to row. She's only in 8th grade. By the way, here's all the D1 schools that have scholarships for rowing. There you go. So I have to hold myself back.
Yeah.
So share with me any tips you have about, what you did, your business, you have more time with your kids, and how you balance their interest level and self-discovery. Obviously, I know that you have different children, different needs, but let's talk about that.
That's really funny because it is, we do have this extra time. Luca teases sometimes. She goes, I wish you guys had regular jobs. Like, because we're in our work. But like, yeah, we were the same way. I was a latchkey kid. He was too. Like, we had to kind of figure it all out on our own. And we didn't have the internet. We didn't have these computers in our pocket. So it is sometimes tough, especially with Luca, to, place some ideas in her head. Maybe you should think about doing this. What about this? And have her, she's her own person, that she's, going to make up her own mind about certain things too. So it's tough for us because we both were so, type A go-getters when it comes to, work.
We had
college.
to,
We
right?
had
That's
to.
the difference.
Yeah.
We had to.
Yeah.
Seriously.
We struggle with this.
And I think too, like Julie and I talk, I'm glad you brought this up. We literally talk about this all the time, especially now. Luca just finished driver's ed. We're talking about cars.
Already?
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Well, she's 15, but she can't get her license till she's 16 in 3 months. Okay. The year of like practice. So
she's
we're there.
She's got her permit. She's driving us around. It's wild. But the point being is, for me as a dad, even to go from taking her to sleep at night up to when she was 12, we're super close. We're going daddy-daughter trips, to I'm my own woman. I have a boyfriend. I'm in high school. I can drive. Here's where I want to go to college. Here's my point of view on the world. Yeah. That's all awesome and exciting to see. But here's the difference that I think we're trying to navigate is Julie and I both grew up in very blue collar, middle class. I was lower class, I'll say it. And it was tough. So I didn't have to be taught, hey, go get a job, save your money, value of a dollar. I had to if I wanted anything. And yes. I don't want to make my daughter live in a tent outside and give her no clothes or money to make her realize that. So it's like finding this balance of, oh, you get the shoes you want and the clothes you want. We go on vacations and you play club volleyball. All amazing, all awesome. Parents want cool, not just stuff, but like we get to be at all that too. But it's also like we need her to figure stuff out on her own too, right? So we're playing this funky balance, and it's definitely not a poor us. It's an awesome challenge. All parents have to figure this out and navigate it. We're lucky we're not working 2 full-time jobs, 70 hours a week, traveling all over. We have amazing help with AJ, but it's a challenge. I mean, it's like 1 minute she loves you, the next minute she's screaming at you, you ruined my life, and why you're so strict and you're this.
When I was 15, the summer before I was 15, I was like working every job I could, bussing tables, babysitting, because I didn't have any extra money to buy clothes or makeup or do things if I didn't do that. And now
And the car fairy wasn't going to show up when I turned 16.
Oh my gosh, the car fairy. Oh my gosh, the car fairy.
It's very different for us, and we don't necessarily have the answers. She's a really good kid, and so it is hard sometimes to crack down on her when she does make a little mistake. But she's a straight A student, and she plays really, really competitive sports, and so we've kind of supported her in both of those things. Like, those are your jobs right now. Like, if you're, on that path, those are your jobs. But, oh, by the way, it's summer. You're going to have a lot of extra time. You need to get like a real job. Like, you need to start babysitting. You need to be doing something, because you're not, your school supply or your school clothes are not just unlimited budget. And I know you're going to want all these things.
Right.
And, the shoes alone that she wants are $200. So it's like, you need to start contributing to this. So we'll see. Let's check back in a couple months.
And I know I sound like a negative ninny because all three of us did it, but so social media could be a whole separate topic. Mm-hmm. It hasn't helped as much either.
Yeah.
Even so my daughter doesn't have a TikTok account. She doesn't have Instagram. She has Pinterest to keep track of Taylor Swift. Yeah. But so we're deciding on the amount, but we're actually going to pay Lily a nominal amount of money if she stays off of social media and through high school.
Oh, that's pretty killer. That's a cool idea.
So we don't, but here's the thing. Girlfriend likes to design and she's on YouTube. Yeah. So what pops up? YouTube Shorts. But then but she doesn't have an account. But because of YouTube Shorts, and even though I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of a stalker, but that's how we're friends. I go into my app and I even limit how long she can stay on YouTube on her phone. But Julie, she'll come out of her room, out of nowhere, she'll come out. Hey, Mom. Yes, Lily? What's Drunk Elephant?
Yeah.
It's a very expensive, high-end skincare line, Tony, that the girls don't need to have.
You're going to tell me too.
He's like, it sounds fun.
My nickname.
But it's interesting when because we have the similar backgrounds. Like, similarly, Lily is a really great student. She's really good in school. And then it stinks because that's her job and she does well. But this summer, she's going to be a camp counselor at one of the gyms here in town. But why? Because I looked around to see what's available for a girl her age. Yep. And then hey, I think you should do this thing. But now she's excited. Yeah. But the whole time it was drama. To your point, I said you could be home all summer. I had blah, 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 blah. So I applaud it, and I don't have the answers either. It's hard. It's very hard. But what I don't like is the vibe or the reputation that sometimes Gen X parents get of providing all of the things or being too helicopter-ish, especially when a lot of Gen X kids grew up similarly of being a latchkey kid, or we just want our kids to do better than what we had.
Yep.
And we happen to have the internet, which we invented, just saying. We have the internet, and so we know how to find the data to research, to give to the kids. Yeah. So I think that isn't talked about enough, because I think it turns into we're helicopter or tiger parents when it's just we want them to have access and suck the marrow out of all the things that we didn't get to do because our parents didn't know.
I lost my dad during COVID, and it's like now it's like, my gosh, what I wouldn't have done to not have my parents working that much. Not like, as a kid, obviously I'm like, sweet, they're not
100%
going to do all these things. But now, we spend all this time with Luca, and again, she teases like she wishes we weren't, but we're not going to look back and say, I wish that she would have been working more so that, and missed out on all of these things that we want to do with her. We only have a couple of years left with her under the same roof. And, because she, some of that might be selfish on our part, that we want to spend time with her. So it's tough. It's hard to balance that. Our parents did what they did because they had to, and they wanted to make these lives for us. Provide the house and the food and, the help with college and all of those things that they could do. So it's hard, but that's where we got our work ethics from. But then I also, I wish my mom and I would have had a mommy daughter weekend when I was a teenager and we had those memories.
Oh, that makes me sad. I wish the same. I'm going to cry.
No, it's true though.
I wish the same. Yeah. I wish the same because I didn't have that. We have a little bit of time left, and I want to end this with whatever you all want to share about what you're working on now. Yeah. What people should be aware of. I know that, you're very involved as well with boards and nonprofits, and you're still helping people. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to you all to share any, URLs or links or entities that you'd like folks to look up, and I'll make sure that I include
short.
links
Tony
as well.
basically has like 4 full-time jobs now. You guys are like,
Don't remind me.
all of them. We're kind of ebb and flow if we're busy. So I'm working with a couple different startups. Well, one's kind of a startup, but like smaller women-owned companies that are I've been working with now for over a year with both of them. One is a baby food brand called Global, which is really cool. Really, yeah. So teaching kids how to eat and exposing them to earlier flavors and allergens, really getting away from the here's a pureed, carrot. Why doesn't my baby like it? And then why does my kid only eat chicken fingers and mac and cheese 7 years later? Okay. So there are some parallels there with what we did with Real Food Blends. And then I'm working with a smoothie company as well called Frozen Garden, which is really interesting. So it's frozen, ready to blend. See the connection of the blending? Smoothies, which is really an interesting, I love it. I love the whole concept of, making vegetables and fruits easier to access to people. So those are kind of my big, clients at this point and advisory roles. There's a couple others, in the tube feeding space that I'm having some discussions with, but that's fun, kind of scratches that startup itch for me. Which is exciting. We talk to each other a lot still about our different clients, and we're like, why don't they just do what I say? And we're like, that's not our rule anymore.
No,
give the advice and the recommendation. We can't make people do what we're not the boss anymore. So
it's true.
So go ahead. Tell her all your stories. He's got some.
No, I don't. Oh my God, no. No, it's cool. It is cool. Going back to working with your spouse, working in parallel with your spouse is much cooler. And because now it becomes sharing stuff that we can help each other with, but we're not working directly on. So
we fight over who's got the office space now.
Yeah.
We have a really nice office that we can close the doors.
That's true.
And
Logistics.
it's like, wait, I need to have a call.
But there's a space up in Luca's room too. It's good. Blagica, it's interesting. What I find myself in right now is the first year after we were done with Real Food Blends, it's a very lucky, interesting, cool place to be when you're 47 years old. And what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I was really prescriptive with it. I allowed myself to spend a bunch of time with Luca and AJ and Julie, and I like to hunt and fish and golf. And then I was like, I said, when it comes, I'll know, and I'm ready. And then all of a sudden that day, I'm like, all right, I need to freaking do something. And the first thing that I'm doing, I work with this company called Mullen's Applesauce, Mullen. And it's one of those kismet things. Jim Mullen was a former Chicago police officer. He just turned 60. He's an awesome guy, Chicago guy. He got shot in the line of duty, and he became paralyzed from the shoulders down immediately as a young man. And he had to figure out a new lot in life. He was married, had a child, and his mom was a good cook. She made applesauce. He said, you know what, Mom? I'm going to get your applesauce on the shelves of Happy Foods and commercialized. Mom was kind of like, all right, how are you going to do that? He figured it out. He got a co-packer. He found a food broker, figured out a brand. That was 15 years ago. And he's now on the shelves at a lot of Myers, Jewel's, Mariano's, Walmart's online. But he's one guy, and he's, again, paralyzed from the shoulders down. And he was a police officer by trade. He didn't go to school for marketing or business. Turns out we had mutual friends in common. Dominic Longo, who you met, like mutual connections from United. You got to meet Tony. He knows co-packers and food. That was like a year and a half ago. We just hit it off. So we basically formed a partnership together. And from there, we've been working this past year on marketing, product, operations, figuring out how to scale. So the next 6 months is going to be really cool because we've been doing a lot of the behind the scenes, not so fun stuff with QuickBooks and ops. And now we're going to be focusing on brand, website, scales. That's a feed.
Wait, I'm gonna interrupt. It's really good applesauce to put on because it's not just
my God, it's so
healthy.
Good.
It's like really good. Put it on top of like unflavored yogurt for your high protein, but then you have the mix in. It's really good.
Stop it. Okay.
That's my
all right. Done.
It's
done.
So good. Put it on for the kids. Like, again, there's sugar, but it's the best product out there. It's thicker. Put it on ice cream, waffles, pancakes, etc. And then, the other one I'll share is an AI tech component. So kind of got the feed the soul, really interesting food stuff. But then I'm also involved in some cool stuff, and I can't talk about it by name yet, but soon we will. And it's AI tech sensors, partnered with some really, really smart, interesting people. And it's actually in partnership with my friend Sam, who's has a large company in the portable sanitation space, and it's gonna disrupt lots of spaces. The ability to track really cool hard to collect data in real time, and then help people make smarter decisions. Think of like a hockey
I love
puck
it.
that is
Yeah.
LTE enabled and can collect data and push it in real time. It's going to be really cool stuff.
Well, that's amazing to see that you're both kind of, both at doing the things. I'm looking forward to seeing what pops out. Because again, the other thing the reason why I'm doing these chats is to remind people, and you mentioned this before, Julie, people are living longer in general. Healthcare is changing, and in your 40s, you still have time and you still have energy
That's right.
to use all that experience for the next step, and you both are doing it. So thank you for joining and being on. And for those who watch live or for the clips you're going to see later after this, make sure that you just keep abreast of what Tony and Julie are doing. Thank you both for being on.
Thanks,
Love you,
Lisa.
B. Great to see you. Thanks for doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, it's fun.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Subscribe and say hi.